I welcome you out to the first Paul S. Richards Safe Workplace Lecture of this fall. We have with us here Dr. Jen Lee, who I'll tell you about in a second. Just a quick heads up, the food is delayed, so we're just going to go ahead and have Dr. Lee do his presentation, and then after his presentation, we believe the food will be here, and then we'll be able to just dig in then and we'll continue to have conversation and ask questions and visit and so forth. So sorry for the delay on that, but it will be here, rest assured. There'll be food. It may not be what we thought it was going to be, but there will be food here shortly. So let me introduce you to our guest lecturer today. He gave me his bio because it's awesome. Dr. Lee is an associate professor at Kansas State University. He's in the Department of Psychological Sciences. Before he joined Kansas State, he was a postdoctoral research fellow at Harvard in the Chan School of Public Health, working with Liberty Mutual Research Institute for Safety. We have Rob Gardner here, who's been a friend of our program here at the Rocky Mountain Center for years and was part of Liberty Mutual at the time when Dr. Lee was there. So it's definitely a very exciting and prestigious postdoc that he did there, and he carried on with his studies of industrial and organizational psychology and has continued to do really amazing research. His primary area of focus of research is on workplace safety, health, and well-being. No surprise there. But he holds interests in safety climate assessment. He's done quite a bit of research in that way. In fact, he's the second most prolific researcher in that area. You'll probably correct me later if I did that wrong. But anyway, lots of really good research in that area. It's particularly in high-risk industries, so he has interest there. And analysis risk perception styles of temporary workers, so people who have temporary work system improvement through the perspectives of macro ergonomics and total worker health. He also has done some work and is interested in office ergonomics for the prevention of musculoskeletal disorders. In fact, he was telling me about a study, and I don't know if we talk about that today, where he's looking at all these workers who went home during COVID and worked in an office or in a space or in a kitchen table, whatever it may be, not exactly the most ergonomically supportive environment. And now we're dealing with the fact that they developed musculoskeletal disorders because of it, as we're bringing them back to the office and so forth. So definitely some really interesting work that he's currently doing, and we'll share some really cool things today. So join me in welcoming Dr. Jen.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes.
So, thanks for having me today, and I'm super delightful to be here and feel honored to introduce two of my studies that are published in Safety Science. Both are about safety climate, which is one of my primary research program, assessment and management of safety climate in hazardous industries. And the title of my talk is Exploring Safety Climate Dynamics, Impact of Within-Workgroup Variation and Leader-Member Perception Incongruence. So the general background, so brief overview what safety climate means. So safety climate is defined as workers' shared perceptions about the organizational efforts in the promotion of safety and health over other competing demands such as productivity and meeting the deadlines or something like that. This term was first introduced by Dob Zohar in 1980, and it has been enjoying its popularity in many different disciplines and industry sectors, as it has been shown to be one of the strongest leading indicator of safety. So many organizations collect data like incidents, accidents, near misses, errors, or injuries, and they believe that no accident thus far reflects the safety of those organizations. However, that might not be the case, and we believe that we need to focus on a variable which can really predict the future safety outcomes in the organizations, and we believe that safety climate is one of those variables. So multiple meta-analysis have shown that the safety climate is associated with the various safety outcomes, and the mechanism can be summarized like this diagram, that safety climate facilitates safety compliance, safety motivation, safety knowledge, the different types of the safety behaviors, and then leads to safe work environment and leads to increased perception of safe environment and leading to the enhanced safety climate. So some virtuous cycle. And the bottom line is the safety climate is based on shared and collective perceptions. So it's not just the CEOs or top managements or frontline employees' individual perception that reflects safety climate. It is the perceptions of various organization members' perceptions about the safety of the organization as a whole. So the first study, titled as Good and Bad Apples in a Barrel, Implications for Managing Both Ends of Within-Workgroup Safety Climate. So, here is the introduction about the two key attributes of safety climate. When people are saying the safety climate is positive and good or desirable, then they are talking about the safety climate level. And it means the mean score. So here are two teams, Team A and Team B. And the red circles indicate the team members' safety climate perceptions. And as you see in Team A, they are generally similar. And Team B, pretty big, variation in terms of safety climate perceptions across its members. However, if we are focusing on the mean score of these two teams about their safety climate perceptions, mean score is exactly the same. So when we are talking about high or poor, low safety climate, we frequently refer to safety climate level, which is also known as safety climate quality, and then we fail to note the important information about the variation in perceptions within groups. There are multiple members, and they may have their unique safety climate perception. Does it make sense? So we see a big variation in Team B and Team A, and we cannot treat these two teams even with exactly the same mean safety climate score at the team level, has exactly the same safety climate. So another important facet is safety climate strengths, and it basically refers to variability in safety climate perceptions within work group members. And it also reflects the homogeneity or heterogeneity of safety climate perceptions. And one good indicator that has been widely used to assess safety climate strength, it has been the standard deviation. You all know the mean and standard deviation, right? So mean score is one representative score, and standard deviation is about the variation and some deviation from the mean. So and zero variability, which means perfect consensus in terms of safety climate perception, is unlikely in the real world because team members may have different needs, concerns, experiences, responsibilities, expectations. So there are a ton of different reasons why individual members have unique safety climate perceptions that are not always congruent with the others in the same team. So, and studies have shown that, and this is not limited to the safety climate, but general organizational climate field, and climate strengths, the variability or homogeneity, moderates the climate level and climate outcome relationship. So if you look at this diagram, the horizontal axis is climate quality, which is climate level, the mean score. If the climate score is high, then the relevant outcomes will be enhanced. It will have some positive relationship. But as you see, the relationship, the strength of the relationship may vary depending on the variability or heterogeneity or homogeneity of the climate perceptions within team members. So when there is greater congruence, high strengths of the climate, then the relationship between climate level and outcome is pronounced, the steeper slope. But when there is low climate strength, not everybody agrees on the one single representative climate score. They have different perspectives. And if that is the case, climate level may have attenuated relationship with the outcome. So this has been shown. And theories adopted to explain these patterns are like situation strength theory. And this theory, in a nutshell, even though we are all different values, different responsibilities, experiences, training backgrounds, but if our organization provides a very strong situation that which particular behaviors are anticipated and you should follow these behavior protocols or something like that, regardless of our individual differences, everyone in this team or organization are likely to show the similar behavior that are expected by the organization. And we call it strong situation. The opposite is weak situation. So the organization do not set the clear norms and standards and expectations, then individual members will use their own personal discretion to show their behaviors. So, and also social learning theory is another useful theory. So through the processes of modeling, imitation, and vicarious learning, people learn from others. If our peers are working in certain direction and my supervisor subordinates are behaving in a particular way, we are likely to conform because we are social beings. And another interesting framework to explain the potential moderating effect of the climate strength on the relationship between climate level and outcome is interpersonal tension reduction theory. And according to this view, if we note any behavior gaps and differences, then we feel like that, well, something is going wrong. So think about the team members. Everyone else is not wearing a hard hat, even though it is required. Then I am the only one who is complying with the standard and wearing a hard hat may feel awkward. I don't want to be the only one who are super concerned about safety. Probably wearing a hard hat might be a safety overkill. So if our behavior is not congruent with others, we may feel some sort of psychological tension, and we are motivated to alleviate that tension by conforming to others' behavior. So these are some theoretical backgrounds. So my study's uniqueness lies on its focus on both ends of the safety climate perceptions within team. So I mentioned that the traditional indicators of climate strength is standard deviation. This is a single statistic per each group. However, there are upper bounds and lower bounds. So in the same team, there may be a person with the highest safety climate perception and lowest safety climate perception. And they contribute a lot to the standard deviation. So instead of just focusing on single indicator of climate strength, which is standard deviation or something like that deviation statistic, why don't we introduce the both opposite ends of safety climate perceptions per each team to see if they have some unique impact on the relationship between climate level and climate outcomes or main effects. So I was open to both scenarios, that the learning unsafe behaviors and learning safe behaviors. So looking at a diagram on the left side, learning unsafe behaviors, we are seeing two teams. And in one team, so can I use a pointer? Here. In this team, we have one member who has extremely low safety climate perception. And this person generally display correspondingly low safety behavior. And this person is marked as star as a kind of a norm setter. So the people with the extreme safety climate perceptions, they are likely to be pronounced in their group because, well, they are showing some unordinary behaviors, but then they are kind of setting norms as a negative examples in this example. So other people who have higher safety climate perceptions and generally exhibiting higher safety behaviors may assimilate their behaviors in consideration of this norm setters with the low safety climate perception. And if this is the case, the original relationship between climate level and climate outcome behavior, as an example here, may be attenuated. The slope will be weakened here. So perhaps this is one possible explanation why the weak climate strengths can attenuate their climate level and climate outcome relationship. And another possibility is that the opposite direction. So the norm setters are now those with the high safety climate perceptions in each team. So these people show very safe behaviors, and other members regard this person as their role model, and if they are showing greater safety behaviors because this person shows greater level of safety behaviors, then once again, the relationship between climate level and behavior relationship will be attenuated. So the attenuation mechanism is different, but the outcome, the attenuation, is similar. But I assume that learning unsafe behavior might be a more common mechanism in the real world. And it is because it is always too easy to cut corners in some safety rules because it doesn't take some deliberate efforts. But to comply fully with all the safety regulations and norms, we need to use more efforts, time, and sometimes trainings are required. So I was open to both the possibility, but I really wanted to test it empirically. But I thought that learning unsafe behavior is a more common mechanism. Any questions thus far? Okay, and there will be a Q&A session. Okay, so once again, the uniqueness of this study is that it's focused on opposite ends of safety climate perceptions, lowest safety climate perception in a work group, lower bound, and highest safety climate perception in a work group, upper bound. So I introduced them, both of them, as a potential moderator of the safety climate level and safety climate outcomes, namely safety behavior, injury severity in terms of lost days due to injury, and accident frequency. So here are hypotheses. Hypothesis 1A, safety climate level and behavior relationship will be attenuated in groups with relatively high upper bounds compared to work groups with relatively low upper bounds. So this hypothesis 1A suggests this positive social learning context. And H1B, the safety climate level and behavior relationship will be attenuated in groups with relatively lower bounds of safety climate perceptions compared to work groups with relatively high lower bounds. And H1B can be depicted like this. So the learning unsafe behaviors. So the people with lower bounds of safety climate and people with those lower bounds of safety climate perceptions will become the norm setter. In the meantime, the next hypothesis 1C, was that the moderating effect of the lower bound will be greater than that of the upper bound. So because learning unsafe behaviors through the social learning mechanism may be more frequent than learning more positive and stringent safety compliance behaviors. And H2ABC, exactly the same, but the dependent variable was injury severity. Once again, the number of lost work days due to injury. And H3, A, B, and C, exactly the same. And the dependent variable was accident frequency, the number of motor vehicle accidents. So we collected data from 2 large-sized electrical utilities in the United States, and over 2,000 participants nested within 183 work groups were utilized, and mean work group size was 11, so there are 11 members in each group. Safety climate and safety behavior were assessed cross-sectionally, and injury severity and accident frequencies were assessed 6 months after the safety climate assessed, so based upon the prospective design framework. An ordinary least square regression was adapted to test hypothesis 1. A negative binomial regression was used to test hypothesis 2 and 3 because the 2 dependent variables, objective safety outcomes, were count variables, and all analyses were conducted at the work group level. And this is the result of the hypothesis 1. So, put simply, hypothesis 1A, positive social learning, not supported. And hypothesis 1B and C supported, such that if you see this yellow dashed line indicating that the teams with the lower safety climate, lower bound, then the relationship between climate level, safety behavior is weaker compared to the teams with higher safety climate, lower bound score. So we clearly see the pattern that as the lower bound of safety climate score is higher, the relationship between safety climate level and outcome getting stronger. And hypothesis 2. Well, the interactions between those upper bound and lower bound and the safety climate level in prediction of the lost days due to injury in 6 months after the safety climate assessment was significant. However, it was somewhat unexpected direction. So to summarize, we were able to find the negative relationship between climate mean score, climate level, and lost to work days due to injury, which is anticipated. So greater safety climate score, lost days, injury severity decline, and these positive safety climate impact trends were observed only when the safety climate upper bound are high or safety climate lower bounds are high. When the lower bounds and upper bounds are low, then the relationship was a little counterintuitive, meaning that when the lower bound or higher upper bound of safety climate perceptions within teams are really low, then perhaps calculating the overall mean score of safety climate to predict their safety performance might be incorrect. Not very accurate because, there are struggling with some issues about non-congruent safety climate and aggregating, averaging the scores to obtain the mean safety climate score at the team level. That might not be a good indicator of a future safety outcome. That was the main finding. Hypothesis 3. A hypothesized the interactions were not significant. However, very interesting main effects were found, such that either the upper bound or lower bound of safety climate perceptions are higher, there were fewer motor vehicle accidents. And this is even after controlling for the overall mean score, the overall safety climate level at the team level. So consideration of the upper bound and lower bounds in addition to the general safety climate mean score at the team level may be very useful. So it's like a two-headed carriages. If the two horses are the same phases, or one is going slow or fast, there may be some issues. But if they are both running fast and the speed of the carriages will be faster. So we can focus on those interesting team dynamics in terms of the variation of safety climate perceptions across the individuals, and then we can take into account for safety climate management. So here is a discussion for the study 1. And this study, utilizing electrical utility worker sample, showed that the upper and lower bound of Within-Workgroup safety climate perception scores can uniquely moderate the association between safety climate level and its intended outcomes, such as safety behaviors and injury severity. Moreover, both ends of Within-Workgroup safety climate perception scores showed significant main effects on motor vehicle accident frequency. So for the better practice of the safety climate management, both ends of safety climate perceptions within work groups need to be considered in addition to safety climate level and strength. So here is one important takeaway. The title of this study was that the good apples and bad apples in a barrel. Well, I do not want to say that the people with lower safety climate perceptions within teams are bad apples. Our goal should be creating a healthy barrel that there is no bad apples in the barrel. So our goal is not to find out those with the low safety climate perception scores within team and get rid of them. No, that is not our goal. We need to focus on those individuals, why they feel the safety climate perceptions of the same teams are perceived as less desirable. And then by going over the reasons and addressing them carefully, then we can create a very sound barrel where the old apples can stay, that's good. So, okay. So study 2 is published this year, and the title is On Different Pages, More Dangerous Than a Paper Cut, Implications of Incongruence Between Leader and Member Safety Climate Perceptions. So as its title suggests, now I am focusing on leader and members' incongruence and congruence, and its impact on various potential outcomes. So, perceptual gaps in safety climate are not unusual. and perceptions between leaders and members are common. There have been several studies that has consistently confirmed these findings. And who do you think has a higher safety climate perception in general? The leaders and management or frontline workers? Leaders, yeah. And why? And leaders are staying frequently in safer environment like office setting instead of spending more time in the field, encountering all the dangers and hazards every day, every moment. And their main values might be different. So workers, they may hurry and rush to finish their tasks quickly so that they want to go back home and take a good rest. And while the leaders, they may be concerned about the productivity and cost effectiveness. So they are not on the same page. And it is probably natural to see that the incongruence in safety climate perceptions. And perceptual incongruence occurs when organization members have heterogeneous understanding regarding the nature and presence of a given set of norms, promises, and obligations. And specific mechanisms may be like a divergent cognitive schemata. So they may have different views, experiences. So yeah, basically they are interpreting the environment differently. And complexity, ambiguity of the obligations. Their jobs and tasks are so different, and their focuses are quite different, and they may be talking about something different when they are asked about the safety climate. I'm talking about PPE, I'm talking about the environment, I'm talking about the policies, and then, yeah, there may be a discrepancy. And third, communication inefficiency. So, it is difficult to clearly articulate what kind of efforts have been made by the organization to improve safety. And although organizations do have plenty of resources, many frontline workers, very unfortunately, are not aware of those opportunities and resources. And yeah, these might contribute to the perceptual gaps in safety climate perception. So I was wondering whether those gaps may have direct impact on various outcomes. So, and I focused on the notion of psychological contract because safety climate has been seen as a form of psychological contract representing mutual expectations and obligations between employers and employees. So employers, so here are policies and supports that will be given to you for your safety, and employees are anticipated to follow and comply with safety norms. But safety climate perception discrepancy and those gaps might be representing some breached psychological contract in terms of safety. So different dimensions of safety climate, like a management commitment to safety and subordinates and peer behaviors of safety compliance, reflect the obligations and responsibilities for both leaders and members. And safety climate incongruence and psychological contract breach may work in this way such that incongruence in safety climate perceptions between leaders and members can lead to psychological contract breach, and subsequently it can lead to diverse negative organizational outcomes, and it is summarized in this diagram with the three main hypotheses. So when safety climate perceptions by leaders and members are not congruent, then there may be some incongruent mental model about the safety behaviors and norms and standards. So there are likely to be some coordination and collaboration errors between leaders and members, and leading to the compromised safety behaviors and increased injury rate as an outcome. At the same time, when there is a big gap between leaders and members in terms of safety climate perceptions, they may indicate the psychological contract breach. Oh, you promised to do that for me, but you did not. And yeah, both direction, employers to employees and employees to employers. And if this is the case, there might be an undermined trust at the organization level, and the organization members feel psychological tension and discomfort, leading to some negative organization outcomes like increased cynicism and increased turnover intention. So hypothesis 1, leaders' safety climate perception will differ from members, with leaders having more positive safety climate perceptions in general to confirm the previous findings, and this is the requirement for this study. And hypothesis 2, incongruence in safety climate perceptions can lead to negative safety indicators like compromised safety behaviors and higher injury rates. Hypothesis 3, incongruence in safety climate can lead to negative organizational attitudes such as increased cynicism, increased turnover intention. So, method. 6 large-size chemical processing companies in South Korea were approached to collect data. So we were able to collect the nearly 5,000 data points nested within 112 to 22 work groups, and the mean work group size was 53. And safety climate incongruence is assessed based on the leaders and members' safety climate perception. And we did not use the subtracted score. We introduced both of them, and statistical analysis called the polynomial regression analysis has been recommended for this sort of analysis to see the impact of incongruence and congruence instead of subtracting one score from another and using that different score. It has some limitations, so we introduced both of the scores. And control variables include organization type of the work unit, so host organizations or subcontractors like that, work unit size and work pressure, and hypothesis 1, parity test within same teams. There were leaders and members. So paired group parity test was used to see whose safety climate perceptions are higher, leaders and employees. Hypothesis 2 to 3, response surface analysis based upon the polynomial regression were used. And all analyses were conducted at the work group level. Here is the finding of the hypothesis 1 testing. So as expected, leaders reported greater safety climate perceptions compared to members. So yeah, we see that the width of these bands are broader around the 3.8-ish among the leaders, and members, yeah, the mean score and more distributed along the 3.5. So yeah, this was also confirmed. And hypothesis 2 results, and this shows the main result of the response surface analysis based upon the polynomial regression. So I will walk you through what this 3-dimensional chart shows. So here is the safety climate perceptions by leaders, and here safety climate perceptions by members. And if you look at the diagonal here, the diagonal indicates when the members and leaders have exactly the same safety climate perceptions, right? Leader and member, they have the equal safety climate perceptions. And that diagonal is projected onto the response surface along this blue line. So if we look at the blue line, we see that when there is a congruence between leader and member, it's a curve like that, safety compliance behavior is greater. It's a U-shape, inverted U-shape like that. So when the leaders and members both agree that they have a high safety climate scores, and the maximum safety compliance behavior is anticipated. But any data points and coordinates deviating from this diagonal toward this corner and this corner indicate there is a big gap. So for example here, member perceive high safety climate perception while leader perceive low safety climate perception. And in this coordinate, another example, leader perceive high safety climate perception while member perceive low safety climate perception, then the score is pretty low. So we see this dramatic inverted U-shaped kind of relationship here. So this finding confirms and supported our hypothesis. So it can be summarized that when there is a congruence between leader and member in terms of safety climate perceptions, greater safety compliance behavior is likely. When there is a greater discrepancy, then safety compliance behavior is likely to be compromised. Does it make sense? Okay. And here is the injury rate as an outcome, and it's opposite. So along this blue line, which is projected on the response surface, referring to this diagonal line indicating leader member have perfectly the same safety climate perceptions. So when they have pretty low safety climate perception, both of them, injury rates are high. However, it is even higher when there is a discrepancy between leader and member about the safety climate perceptions. As we see here, the spike on the corner here. But when they view that the safety climate is generally high, but when they are agreeing, then injury rate is nearing to 0. So we clearly see that incongruence matters. all right, some additional findings, but different outcome variable. And organization cynicism, well, the trend is a little weaker compared to the other two figures we already saw. However, the similar trends were found. So when there is a congruence, and when they are both leaders and members are viewing high safety climate perceptions of their team, then cynicism is lowest. However, when there is a gap between member and leader, it was marginally significant. However, there was a slight increase in cynicism because of the discrepancy between them. And turnover intention, this finding is almost similar to the injury rate outcome. So when there is a congruence, generally turnover intention is not very high. Although when there is when leaders and members perceive that safety climate perceptions are generally low, then turnover intention is increased. However, compared to these occasions when there is a big and dramatic discrepancy in terms of safety climate perceptions, it's lower. So the level of safety climate matters by each leaders and members. However, what also matters is congruence and incongruence. So the discussion. This study utilizing chemical company worker sample demonstrated that importance of analyzing the gap between leaders and members or any organizational hierarchies within the chemical industry or other relevant industry sectors. And this study contributes to safety climate literature by providing further support for examining safety climate perceptions at the work unit level, and perceptual gaps inherently exist at the work unit level. And we found that this incongruence has significant implications for safety performance and organization outcomes at the work unit level. So we encourage researchers to study further antecedents and outcomes of this gap. Why those gaps are happening? Why some teams have such a good congruence in safety climate perceptions? And we can examine them, and we can take into account those elements in the efforts to improve safety climate in general. So we encourage practitioners, organizations to be cognizant of the incongruent perceptions between leaders and members, and to ensure consistent communications between leaders and members regarding safety policies and procedures. Okay, the general discussion about the studies in 1 and 2. Facilitating open discussions within work groups is critical for the promotion of safety climate. And individualized consideration of occupational safety health promotion efforts is important. I know it's easier said than done. However, we should aim for that. Making sure that everybody is on the same page about the initiatives for enhancing safety climate. It is important. It's a teamwork. And clear and efficient workplace communication strategies are critical, and promoting communication at all organizational level, not just the leadership level, frontline worker level, but cross levels. It is important. Okay, and this is it. And questions, feedbacks.
So,
can you talk about how you measured worker perception? Like, was it the same in both studies, or did you have to go through some vetting with the testing, or just?
We used survey, so statistically validated surveys were used, and the same survey, but implemented to members and leaders, and we compared them. So
Okay, and is the survey you generated, or is it like a national standardized?
So for the first study, it was the safety climate scale developed and validated specific to utility industry. And that paper was published in Essence Analysis and Prevention, and it was based upon a pretty large sample and a couple of thousand respondents from multiple power line industry sectors. And second one, we utilized it was South Korean safety climate scale validated for chemical industry sector. So this study was part of the original project, and the first project is validating the scale, and then we conducted the follow-up study like that. So
Within the chemical industry, was it focused on the manufacturing of chemicals or distribution? Do you know?
They are chemical manufacturing factories, yes, yeah.
Interesting.
They're, they have slightly different directions, but they are all within the same industrial park, which is very large, almost like a city.
Okay.
Plus, nearly more than 10,000, well, more than 20,000 people. Yeah, so. Sure.
Can you explain how the norm setter was chosen or established?
This is a question that needs to be addressed. However, in this study, we assume that those with extremely low or extremely high safety client perceptions are likely to be kind of norm setter because at the extremes in our team. So this person always go for safety, no exception, versus this person, another person never cares about safety. And then these two persons may signal pretty different things to the other one member. So which are organizationally acceptable and tolerable behaviors? So it was our assumption, but it is also needs to be tested in a more systematic way. Sure.
Oh, sorry. So were they actually observed, the groups, or was this just
No,
survey?
it was not. Yeah, it was based on survey.
So following up on that, so if you had, say, one team where you had one really positive deviation and one really negative deviation, like did you just select the one as the norm setter that was the most outlier of?
Most outliers, yes.
Okay, so all right, so like there could be a person who's like a negative deviation and a team that has a really positive deviation.
That's right.
Okay, so
So outliers are statistical
yeah.
representation of my languages here. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
We do have a question over here.
probably
She's been
we're
waiting.
hearing it.
So sorry, we'll come back, promise.
Alright, I'm not sure if you guys looked at this or not, but how does seniority play into how influential the outlier would be? So you imagine like,
Yeah.
if the guy who's been on the job for 30 years is like, screw the hard hat, right? That's different than the new guy who's on the team.
That's a very valid point, and studies have shown that the variation in the team safety client perceptions is significantly associated with general team members' teamwork and experiences. And we introduced the team's tenure as a control area. And we were able to find some moderate level of relationships, so greater team tenure and generally greater consensus, but it was not super big. So there are a lot of variances that still need to be explained, but yeah. Yeah.
Kind of along the same line, can you talk about the results from these studies? Like, where do you feel like that pushes your next interest? Are you like normalization of deviance, who's following the norms, getting into more of the why in these relationships, or do you think you'll stick with kind of the safety?
I'm happy that you asked this question because I am in the process of formulating some interesting and maybe somewhat ambitious plan for creating a theory based upon thermodynamics. So thermodynamics is all about exchanging energy. So put simply, if we mix cold waters and hot waters, there will be somewhere in between temperature, so equilibrium point, right? So people with a greater power and control who has high or low safety climate perceptions, and people with generally lower power and control and have high or low safety climate perception. If they are invited to work as the same team, there may be some social dynamics influencing, assimilating, who's gonna be the norm setter, something like that. So I really want to empirically generate some sort of equation that helps to model the trajectories of safety client perceptions over time. So yeah, that is my plan. All right.
For the second study,
Uh-huh.
it's South Korean.
Yes.
I was wondering what you think the relatability to the United States industries would be, knowing the cultural differences between the two regions.
Sure. So there certainly exists cultural differences. South Korea, one of the countries with collectivistic culture, and generally there are greater power gap between the leaders and members. However, employees are aware of the importance of safety, and they have been consistently pressured by the technology because productivity has been prioritized. Very unfortunately, even though there has been some major incidents, including the gas explosion of the factories and some release of hazardous chemicals to community members. So they are aware of the importance of this effort. So I believe that although they may not feel 100% safe to be 100% honest, however, they understood the goal of this project, and we utilize the value scale, which is shown to be pretty reliable and associated with the criterion variable. So hopefully, it's not severely biased or something, but future studies need to take into account the cultural differences as well. So, for example, testing these relationship patterns across the American countries, in South Korean countries, or China, or India, or Brazil, or Argentina. So that will be an interesting story. So, what's the role of the national cultural norms? So, yeah, sure.
I'm curious how you administered the safety climate survey in these studies. Was this done with computer link? Was it done with paper copies? I'm just curious how
So both approaches were considered depending on company and organization members' availability. And the first study was one of the projects of the Liberty Mutual Research Institute for Safety. So they have some clients so the Liberty Mutual is providing workers' compensation, and one of the services that the Liberty Mutual Research Institute for Safety providing to their clients is kind of safety consulting. Because if the organizations can perform safely, then it is beneficial to the organization and the insurance policy. So it was part of that effort, and they were voluntarily agreed. We introduced about the Safety Climate Project, and they applied for this opportunity, so we were able to disseminate it. And South Korean chemical industry sector, it was initiated by the Korean Occupation Safety and Health Administration. However, they didn't play a key role in collecting data. They outsourced it to the rural researchers, and I was lucky to be there. And we approached individual companies, figuring out which modality would work best, and we consider both.
Just a quick follow-up. So
Sure.
what was the participation rate that you saw? I mean, I'm assuming this was not mandatory that every employee did this survey.
Right.
That it was given as a choice that
Sure.
they can either do it or not do it, and what the participation rates were.
So the response rate wise, the two utility companies for the study one, 43% and 73%, if I correctly memorize. It's roughly around there. So in some, it's around 60% because the 70% rate was from the larger organization, and then the South Korean companies, I think it ranges somewhere between 60 to 80%.
More question over here?
Sure.
I just had a question on the second study with those three-dimensional plots you were showing. It seems like at the tail end, there's a big role is the order of the polynomial you chose.
Yes.
Fit that. So how did you choose the order of the polynomial you fit it with?
So, we introduced the two variables, the members' safety climate perception, leader safety climate perception, and their square terms are introduced, and their interaction terms are introduced, and the first order terms of leader member safety climate perception, and they were introduced, and it uniquely combines the coefficients in this particular way. And if you are interested in that methodology, I strongly encourage it. He is a professor from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Edward Jeffrey Edwards. Yeah, Jeffrey Edwards has a homepages and some Excel spreadsheet and syntaxes that can be referred to. So. All right.
Sure.
I thank you for a wonderful talk. I can't comment on Korea, but I can comment on what I've seen in many states for 35 years. The gap between the C-suite and the worker, I don't think it's changed much. It's my impression. It's significant and it's there, and it's the disconnect is fascinating. We were talking. Rob worked at Liberty Mutual for many years here in Salt Lake. Has been on our advisory board, but anyway, which we're most appreciative. But the point I was going to make also is we have problems with the C-suite being so off base in certain sectors and industries that it's pretty concerning. It's not uniform. You know, it's certain areas. And quite frankly, talking about with other people nationally, one of the worst is academia.
So these studies were conducted in pretty unique environments, utility and chemical companies. The group size may be different, and the roles of the leaders. For example, firefighters and EMS, the leaders may be part of the team too, who are actually in the field. So the unique context of the organization and industry must be taken into account. So there are a long way to go and more studies are needed on that. And I understand that addressing that gap to zero may be impossible. However, still we can try. We need to do our best, right? So, sure.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Did you see any kind of an effect for perception of danger as well on the responses to the safety culture? For example, in utility and electricity, there's a big perception of danger. Depending on what chemical you're working with, there may not be as big of a perception of danger within your
Well,
job.
actually, these items were originally included in the initial version of those validated safety climate scales. And luckily, I was part of the research team when they are developing and validating those measures. So I am very familiar with the original and the final items. Actually, it was opposite. The risk danger perceptions items were included in chemical safety because they always deal with some fumes and chemical materials and some dangerous equipments. Utility companies, for some reason, these items turn out to be not really discriminating. And one anecdotal example might be, so do you happen to know what is the greatest danger for the utility workers, generally speaking? Electrocution?
Driving.
Or, no, it was bees, I mean,
Wow.
So, anyway, so perhaps that might explain why so varying reasons. So, anyway, good question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee.